Hi, Sumanyu. How are you doing?
Hi, Payal. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Good, good. Very many congratulations on your 760
Thank
Q51
you.
V40, and you took this test back in March. Your second attempt, first attempt being a 730, a very good score indeed. That was in February. How does it feel?
It's been great. As I always share with my friends, essentially for Indian applicants, having a high GMAT score is a necessity and not a good to have. So it
Mm-hmm.
was very relieving when I had the 760, and I was
Mm-hmm.
honestly slightly nervous when I had a 730 with regards to whether it would affect my application in a negative way.
Right,
So you
right.
have definitely very relieving to have a 760.
Good. Very indeed. Very great accomplishment indeed. And you already have admit from HBS in their deferred program 2+2. So congratulations on that. So you're an academically brilliant guy, IIT Bombay, right? You recently graduated from there, and 2022, in fact, right? And you have been working full time already with your current company. So very impressive accomplishments already with you. So congratulations on that too. Really
Thank
proud
you.
of you. Yes. Okay. So walk me through. When did you decide to take the test? Why did you decide to take the test?
Sure. So I decided back, I exactly recollect the date, which was 2nd of September, wherein I decided to go for the deferred MBA applications. And the very first thing with regards to an application for international admissions is the test, like which test to take. And I was considering between GRE and GMAT, and it
Mhm.
was an obvious decision that the GMAT is a smarter test to take, wherein it's not about just mugging up a lot of vocabulary, but it's also about applying the grammatical rules and the functions that you learn. And therefore I just thought that it's a better challenge to take up, and thus I took up the GMAT.
Okay, very good decision. And then how did you decide what course to take on?
Sure. So I think I'd taken the first practice test from uh, GMAT's free tests. So there are two free tests on the GMAT's official portal, and I'd taken one of the two, and I had a 690, which was fine, but it was not something which I was satisfied with.
Mm-hmm.
And once I started diving deeper into the verbal sections, I realized that it's a lot more structured. There's a lot more things to be covered rather than just practicing a set of questions.
Mm-hmm.
And thus I started looking for courses and options that are present.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at some reviews for for different courses, target test prep, eGMAT, etc. And I just felt that eGMAT had very strong positive reviews, and a lot of it centered around Indian applicants as well. So I just felt that it's probably very well designed for Indian applicants who generally don't have strong English education before undergraduate essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And thus I decided to go ahead with eGMAT.
Okay. And I see that you took a Sigma X mock test as well, which in which you scored 690 and again Q50 and V34. So the Sigma X mock mirrored the results that you got in the
Yep.
official mock, right? And when I look at your
Yep.
personalized study plan, and that's something which is interesting always. So to see what the study plan actually tells you. So let me open that here. Here. So yeah, so SC was your weak area, right? So in all of, so CR, RC, arithmetic, algebra, all of these were really good. So you really needed to improve in SC, which is what we told you, stage 1 of SC. Everything else is stage 3, which means that you can go ahead, cement a little bit, and then move forward with the test readiness. So is that how you looked at your study prep as well?
Yes, so this statistic, as I do recollect, I do remember that SC was a very negative factor for my GMAT prep, and therefore I definitely needed to improve on it. And as such, for any exams, it's about improving the weakest parts more than strengthening your strongest parts. So
Mm-hmm.
it was about improving SC. Uh, and I also felt that improving SC would essentially reflect on my entire verbal score in general, because it's one of those sections wherein you can take up lesser time, you can improve easily because it's about learning a lot of different things instead of improving on a certain skill set.
Mm-hmm.
So I just felt
Right.
that focusing on SC would lead to a much bigger jump in the score rather than going to a very distributed education in some sense.
Agreed. Absolutely. So focused effort. Now, how did you go about preparing for SC? So walk us through that.
Sure. So I believe stage one is essentially about going through the course contents and taking up those practice tests that are there after each after each small bit that has been taught. So I just went through it diligently. It was about essentially making sure that I cover all the important sections, which is modifiers, so on and so forth, parallelism, uh, identifiers, etc. And therefore, that was what I focused on, made sure that I've covered all the course content. And I was occasionally just trying to understand whether I'm learning anything or not. And I would take up a practice tests or the Scholaranium tests at times. But I realized that's not really helping because I hadn't covered everything.
I
So
observed
then I
that
went
in
back to
your, yeah, I actually did observe that you were doing course content and then you would get curious, you would go to Scholaranium, attempt a few quizzes and then come back to the course. I'm like, what is he
yes.
doing? He should be just doing course first and then cementing. So good. So you realize that. That is really good. Yeah. Okay. Then what did you do?
Then I just continued with completing the course. And then as I said, I would definitely get curious about whether I'm learning anything new or not, and therefore I would take up some practice tests, maybe a Sigma X mock test, and I'd realize that yep, I should go back and study everything instead. But yes, I think once I started having a very concentrated effort towards learning the things before taking the tests up, I realized that I'm making better jumps, bigger leaps in my
Right.
preparation.
Right. And I do see that there was a gap in your preparation as well. You
Yes.
started in October, then November, December, you were out of picture. What happened at that time?
Yes, so I essentially had dengue, because of which initially it was like for 2 weeks I was completely down. And after that, I really didn't have the attention span to go through a course. Along with it came the December vacations that we have in college. So all of that put together just led to me not being focused for the course. And
Right.
therefore, I had to defer taking the GMAT, which I had initially planned for December. I deferred it to February.
Okay. Okay. All right. And then you resumed, you didn't leave from where you didn't start from where you had left. You revised a
Yes.
bit and then you resumed your
Yes.
preparation. Okay. Good.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Because I was
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So essentially me just thinking through like what are the things that I still remember and what are the things that I don't. I recollect very cleanly that modifiers was one thing I was not very clear about. And therefore I just decided that it's better to invest my time going through everything again, even if it would mean that I need to like go through a lot of things that I've already seen before. But I thought that it's better than to just find out those small parts which I don't recollect well.
Okay. So, how did going through the SC course help you improve your accuracy in SC questions? You saw, you just mentioned that you saw leaps of improvement. So, help us understand
Sure.
that.
So essentially, before the eGMAT course, it was about intuitively making a decision with the 5 options that are there. But after taking the eGMAT course, I essentially learned the fundamentals of grammar, the fundamentals of using these different tools of grammar to find out the answers. So after that, I was way more well prepared to take up a question and tackle it instead of a different situation wherein I'm trying to intuitively find out an answer.
Okay.
And essentially intuitively finding out the answer would in the eGMAT language mean that you're essentially trying to figure out the meaning, but that's not something which will always help. Once you figure out the meaning, that's when you then start tackling the question on the basis of the grammatical correctness.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So help me understand with the meaning aspect. How did the SC course help you with comprehension?
With regards to the comprehension, it is essentially, figuring out what is an ambiguous sentence. So in a general piece of literature that we read, sentences are ambiguous, but humans have developed an ear for it, wherein they can, get rid of that ambiguity. At the same time, the GMAT test requires you to, figure out what is an ambiguous sentence from the point of view of the sentence and not from the point of view of what our brain wishes to understand. And that can mean very different things. There are so many examples wherein a monkey is essentially running a company and things like that. So I think there are two really good examples that can show what is an ambiguous sentence from the perspective of the sentence itself versus what is an ambiguity from the perspective of a human being. So developing an ear for what is an ambiguous sentence from the perspective of grammar and from the perspective of the GMAT exam is something which was really important. And that's what I primarily developed. And I realized later on that this is also valuable for a lot of different things that could just mean, reading a piece of literature, reading newspapers, reading prospectus, etc.
How? Help me explain. Help me understand that.
essentially, developing a good ear for the content, being able to figure out the meaning of a sentence really fast. Like once you've been able to figure out the meaning of a long sentence in, let's say, a minute or two, which is required as per for the GMAT exam, so then you're really prepared for any literature to be read, honestly, as long as it's a business formal language.
Right, right. How about writing skills? Because I've had students tell me that not only did their reading comprehension skills improved, also their writing skills improved. In that they started identifying errors in the email correspondence from their friends and all that stuff. So, what do you think about that?
So, once you've experienced what does an ambiguous sentence mean, you become very sensitive about what are you really writing yourself. And I became very sensitive about what are the types of things that I'm writing, whether the verb is connecting, whether the modifiers are connecting to the right nouns that are there, or whether I'm using the right modifiers for the noun that I want to connect it to, or for an action that I want to connect it to. And that's where I think e-GMAT helped a lot and sentence correction helped a lot. And there are many such examples. I think I can take up an hour just explaining about how I've improved writing on the basis of GMAT.
Yeah, so essentially, it not only gave you the right kind of architecture to answer GMAT questions, it also enhanced your life skills, and that is that's something that I've heard time and again for our students tell us. So that's good. That's really good to know. Especially master comprehension course, that is something which really tells students who are not accustomed to reading. I think you come from a background wherein you read a lot. You were an avid reader to begin with, right? So for you, maybe that strategic pausing wasn't that critical because you already were doing that intuitively. But a lot of students who are not used to that kind of reading, for them, strategic pausing is the first step. And then you apply that with the grammatical constructs, and then you're able to understand the meaning in a holistic manner.
And yeah, and for the e-GMAT course, and probably for any course as such, especially for the GMAT, the e-GMAT especially dives into the very foundations of language and grammar. And it could at times feel like, it's too simple or too elementary for me. But at the same time, I would just advise anyone taking the eGMAT course to just, go through everything. It's just better to make sure that you've covered everything instead of, jumping through different groups.
Good. That's a very valuable suggestion. All right. So you went through the course. Then what did you do?
So once I went through the course, then there were some Scholarinium tests. I would particularly focus on my
you did cementing
sentence
first,
correction
right?
school.
Yes, cementing, right?
Yes, cementing. Yes. So cementing courses. Sorry, I just forget the names at times. It's been a while now.
It's been a while, exactly. So I'm going to share. So I'm going to share my screen and show the cementing quizzes that you took. So let's look at this here, dashboard. Yeah. So you focused primarily on sentence correction, which was something that so here you took on 6th Feb and then 6th Feb, 21st Feb, and then 22nd Feb. So you applied the cementing process to the letter T here, made sure that and this was medium cementing, then hard cementing, again, 9th March. This is after you finished your, this 24th Feb, that's when you took the hard cementing. And then I think because you didn't do well here, you went back and you revised a medium cementing quiz, right? That's what you did here.
Yes, I did.
Yes. And then
I actually went back once again, I believe. And once again, modifiers was one part of the GMAT course, which was always somewhere wherein I stumbled. And I believe that's one of the hardest sections in general. So I think I just revised to that again. And the other part was essentially about parallelism. These were the two parts.
Yes, so you looked at... So this is what you were talking about, right? That modifiers, there were 3 questions that you got wrong. So that's when you identified that you have to go back and revise it. So you took feedback from the expert view from the analytics that you got from Scholarinium. You implemented that feedback and you went back into the course. So did you go through the entire modifiers module? And I'll be curious to see the time that you,
Probably I did. I don't really recollect now, but I at least made sure that I took the practice tests once again.
Okay. Let me take a look at modifiers. Yeah, I can see modifiers, verb ing modifiers, 104 minutes. That's a little less than 2.
I particularly focused on the ing and the ed parts of the modifiers because that's where I stumbled the most.
Right.
The rest I was really comfortable with.
Good. And that's exactly what we tell students, cementing process that's outlined in this way, that if you take the test, if you don't score well, you review your questions, and then you take feedback from that analysis, go back to the course, review the appropriate parts. And that's exactly what you did. And the results are very evident. You were able to pass the cementing quizzes. So that's amazing. What did you do after that? Yeah. After cementing.
After that, it was essentially about practicing for the entire test. So the first test that I took back in February, I didn't really have a test preparation. It was more about just having covered all the topics. And that's a very rookie mistake, given that I have taken competitive exams before, wherein I hadn't prepared for the test itself, but it was more about covering, as it said, right? The sum of parts are higher than the individual parts if we aggregate them together. And therefore, the first GMAT essentially proved out to be the same, wherein I didn't score as much as I wanted to.
So you actually took your first GMAT before you had cemented SC, right? You just finished the course and you took your GMAT, right? Yeah,
Yes.
that is. I'm glad you identified that as a rookie mistake, because that is a mistake. So, but then you came back from that really very well. So also tell me, what were your learnings from your first mock? I mean, it wasn't you scored a V39, so you did really well. But what were more specific things that you learned from that attempt?
The first GMAT exam? Yeah. So it was essentially about time management, wherein I realized that saving some time on sentence correction, because it's slightly more rule-based than the other two sections, which have a lot of interpretation. So I focused on making sure that I'm establishing my sentence correction skills. And this is not just about knowing the facts, but also about being able to apply them at a very constrained time. Because in my first GMAT, I essentially had the reading comprehension sections at the very beginning of the exams. The first 10 questions revolved around the reading comprehension questions. And I was pretty concerned by the first 10 questions, like, where is my test heading? Because I think I'd lost around 30 minutes of my exam over there.
Wow.
And it became really hard for me to come back from there. And that just reflected on my entire exam.
Okay, so you learned that you have to get better at time management, and you identified sentence correction to be that section wherein you can cut down your time. So it's very interesting that your weakest section to begin with, back in October, you identified SC as your weakest section, which it was. Now you wanted to not only change that weakness to strength, but also capitalize on that strength to cut down on time. That was a very good strategy. Yeah, good, very nice. And again, for you, it was SC. For somebody else, it could very well have been CR, right? Because there are some people, what is that? Go ahead.
It's one test, and there are people have different skills, and I'm pretty sure they'll find their sweet spot. So I wouldn't give a blanket statement wherein, someone should optimize on SC, but instead they should find their own skills and what they are strong at. If someone can comprehend a paragraph within minutes or within seconds, so then they're definitely in a better position to focus on, improving the reading comprehension skills, making sure that they can reduce the time over there, and then they can focus on the other parts to reduce their time.
Exactly. So you have to, so again, it's not just the numbers, it's also knowing what your innate strength is, right? So, so that is a very important takeaway that I would want students to take from this. So good, very nice. There was something else also that you had mentioned earlier with regards to your first attempt. Something else that you had mentioned in our initial discussion.
I think I mentioned about how the test is a bit too, what should I say? The test is a lot more nerve-wracking than the actual mock itself.
Yes, that too, but also reading through long sentences. That is something that you recognize in the first attempt. Yeah,
definitely. So I was reasonably doing well in the reading comprehension and on the critical reasoning, but I was not able to reduce my time as much as I would. And there are different ways to figure this out. This could just mean, reading through a lot of different documents, and you're still taking the same time after months. That would mean that you're essentially not going to reduce your time over there. So it became clear to me that I'm doing well in RC and CR, but I'm not able to reduce my time. At the same time, because the RC section had come at the very beginning, I did look at my advanced analytics. I had my first two parts of the test to be at 100%. And therefore, the sentence correction parts were very tough for me. And they were essentially comprising of really long sentences with a lot of different concepts being intertwined. At the same time, I was getting this feeling during the test itself that, these are things wherein I can score if I had that time, if I had that preparation to, capitalize on understanding the long sentences and then figuring out the grammatical errors.
So
And therefore, I went back to the chalking board and took up cementing tests and tried to figure out when I'm losing out marks on.
Good. Okay. So you recognize that that weakness during your first attempt, and that's when you came back and you cemented. Now, one thing that I would say is, as you already said, you should have cemented before taking the attempt. So that was a rookie mistake, right? But you came back from that very, very fast, and that's really good. Another thing that I would say is that for CR and RC, you felt that you could not reduce your time, and I would say you didn't invest time on CR and RC at all, right?
Yes.
Right. So
I didn't because as I like, there was a limited amount of hours at the end of the day for the GMAT. It's not like I had a year or so because I had my applications in April, and therefore I needed to take the test by March. So I just felt that sentence correction is one place wherein, with the least amount of investment of time, I can make the maximum jump or the biggest leap.
So you went with that focus effort, and that's what you then continued to enhance. So that's really good, and it's important for people to understand that it's not that it's not possible to reduce time for CR and RC. You didn't decide to put in the effort there, right? Yes. Which is why you said, okay, SC is what my strong suit is now, and I'm going to continue working on that and reduce time.
And therefore, as I said, I wouldn't like to give out any blanket statements. Good. Focus on SC, don't focus on RC or something of that sort. Right. That would be very stupid of me.
Exactly. Okay, good. Now, you did cementing, and then you started doing test readiness with mocks, right? So walk me through that process. How did you go about doing that test readiness?
Sure. So I started taking the practice tests that are there on the official GMAT test. I had actually made that purchase when I had enrolled for the first test itself, and therefore I decided to first go through those practice tests. And I didn't really feel that the tests were doing a justice with regards to the actual exam, because the questions were repetitive. The questions were things that I'd seen on different forums. It could be a GMAT club forum or whatever it is. But I didn't feel that these were tests that were helping me develop the skills to take the actual exam. And therefore, I went back to the Sigma X mock tests, and they were much tougher in the first place. So it felt like a challenge. At the same time, I think that's what made me really well prepared for the test. Having slightly tougher tests is never going to be a pain, because if you are prepared for the slightly tougher test, then you're definitely prepared for the actual test as such.
And that's where you were talking about the nerve-wracking part, right? Yeah.
Yes, definitely. So in the actual exam, there are different things that keep happening, right? So, they'll take your passport, they'll check your details, you have to sit somewhere for half an hour, and then you get to actually take the test. You're made to wear noise cancelling headphones, whatnot. So the actual environment of the test is going to be way tougher than whatever environment you are in. And therefore, it's just better to be really well prepared on the fundamentals, so that these other non-test situations don't take away from your actual exam.
Absolutely. Very well said. Okay, so then when you, and again, that's the intent behind, there's the 3 stages of learning. Stage 1, you learn the content, the application. Stage 2, you cement, right? And stage 3, you do test readiness. And test readiness doesn't just happen through mock exams. It happens through, taking multiple mixed quizzes, which is something that you did as well, so you took verbal mixed quizzes, and then you took the mock. So that's really good. Now tell me, when you would sit down for a Sigma X mock, how would you distribute the time there? How would you budget your time for that?
Sure, definitely. So the Sigma X mock tests were essentially revolving around the quant and verbal sections. I always had the habit of taking verbal before quant because I was reasonably well assured with my quant score. So essentially the first 2 hours or 2 hours, 10 minutes that comes up with I think 63 minutes of quant and 65 minutes of verbal. Put together, that was the first 2 hour, 10 minutes, I think. And then the rest of the time, which is around an hour, hour and a half, went into going through the test again, trying to find out the weaker spots. And the weaker spots would revolve around which are the types of questions that are taking up a lot more time on. And that's where the analytics helped. Then it was about where did I make a guesswork, which would essentially mean I would at times flag the question or at times I just note it down on a piece of paper.
Mhm.
And then the third part was like the questions that I got incorrect. So I would evaluate all these three different parts, after which I would go back to the course if required. Or if it's just a quick fix, I would just write it down on a piece of paper for my memory.
Okay, good, good. And then you did all of this, you took all the Sigma X mock test, and on
Yes.
11th of March, you scored a 750. And that's
Mhm.
when you were confident, you're ready to take the test, and right?
Yes.
Okay, and within 2 days, you took your test, right? 2 days or
Yes.
1 day? Yeah, good,
Yes.
good.
So I think on Friday I'd taken the last mock test, and on Sunday I had the actual test itself.
Okay, I'm just checking the dates here. Friday was 11th of March was a Friday. Yes, so 13th of March you took the test. Yes, good, good, very nice. Okay, so GMAT done. If there were, let's say, 3 things that you would recommend to a prospective student with regards to how should they think about their GMAT attempt, what would those be?
Uh, I would say, let's say, if they do take up eGMAT as a course, and I would definitely recommend everyone to take this course. They should first start with the evaluatory part, which eGMAT has, and it could be the Sigma X mock test or whatever. I don't recollect how did they evaluate, but I do remember there was an evaluatory test at the very
Sigma
beginning.
X mock, yeah. It was Sigma X mock test, and then you prepare personalized study plan, the PSP,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yes. So essentially, go through that test, try to find out where you feel you're not doing well. The test, the system will definitely generate a set of things for you. At the same time, you should be very self-reflective about what are the things you felt uncomfortable with, and keep these two things in mind. So I would suggest prepare for both the things, wherein what did you feel uncomfortable with, and what are the things the test has recommended you to prepare on. So with these two things, start with the preparation. Don't make the mistakes that I made, which is go through the entire syllabus once, go through the course content, and then go for the cementing tests. But yes, once you are done with the cementing tests and you're preparing for, let's say, you're taking up mock tests or you're just practicing through the questions, don't hesitate to go back to the original course content.
Good.
It's
Good.
very fun. It's very important to have your fundamentals clear, and that is true for any exam that you take.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, very well said, Sumanyu. And I think with your lots of good learnings from your experience, and I'm sure students would get benefit from it. And I would like to wish you very best for your future ahead. You have a bright future, touch wood, and keep in
And
touch.
thank you for taking the course. Yep,
Yes.
definitely.
Thank you very much. All right, Sumanyu. Thank you.